Alright, so check this out. I'm at a beach right now, spitting some game now. Okay, so addictions. What is it? How did we get addicted? How did we get in this predicament? We were born without addictions, and somewhere along the line, we became entangled and addicted to all sorts of things, from people to possessions to substances to pornography to sexuality to mobile phones to the internet to food. Now, nobody wants to be a slave, right? So true freedom, we must understand, is not in condemning these things. True freedom isn't found in condemning all your addictions. True freedom is when you no longer feel the pull or the push for the addictions. Now it's starting to rain. But I'm going to keep it going because this is important. So, as I say, nobody wants to be a slave. Nobody wants to be addicted, right? So, again, condemning it, if you're condemning the object of addiction, what's happening here? If you're condemning the object of addiction, so say you're addicted to painkillers or weed or alcohol, if you start condemning it, which is what we commonly see when we're trying to have some space away from the clutches of the addiction, you're still not free from it. So if you're condemning the object that you're attached to, you're still not free because your mind is still dwelling upon the condemnation of it, right? So you must understand that true freedom, true liberation, true transcendence is found when you are perfectly indifferent to the acquisition of the object that you are addicted to, right? I'm going to break it down, so don't worry, I'm not trying to go over anybody's head. I'm just trying to keep it PG, keep it real. Okay. See, now my notes are getting wet. See this? Hey, I gotta spit this real quick. Okay. So you can figure out, okay, so how do you know if you're addicted to something? Or how do you know what you're addicted to? Because for some people, and for a lot of us, it's not so clear what we're addicted to. So you can figure out if you're addicted to something if in the absence of the acquisition of the object, it causes you misery, right? So when you don't get that hit of weed, or when you don't get that sip of alcohol, or when you don't get that social media dopamine hit, or when you don't get that sexual release, when you don't get that food, that's how you know you're addicted to it. Because now, why? In the absence of that, it's causing you misery. Because you've built up a dependency upon it. And nobody wants to be a slave. Nobody wants to be dependent upon anything. We weren't born like this. It happened gradually because we started to believe the programming and conditioning that society, parents, friends had put onto us. So to realize one's own limitations and one's own addictions, you have to reflect and cogitate, ruminate, reflect upon where you're going wrong in the addiction, and then start to build some sense restraint and some space away from it, right? And I got to keep saying it. True freedom is not found in condemning the addiction. It's found when you're totally and perfectly indifferent from it. For example, say you were once addicted to alcohol. At first, it's going to be very, very hard to be in a bottle store or to be at a party like a wedding or a birthday and not have a sip. You're going to feel that pull for mad long. It's going to be whispering in your ear, damn, drink me. With the red cups, people are laughing, people are doing this, but it is the brave one who can stand up against their addictions and attempt to be fully free. So eventually, you'll get to a point where you have surpassed the addiction and you're beyond the duality of pull and push, of aversion and attachment. Meaning you can go into a social setting and not feel that sense of inadequacy or that awkwardness or that pull for the alcohol. Same with Same with sexuality. If you're on a date and you're used to always having your way and being attached to the sexual release that happens during sex, you know you've transcended sexuality, or you have some space away from it when you can hang out with a woman and not see her so sexually, just as an object, just as an object for your sense gratification. When you can hang out with her or be in the company of a woman and you're just chilling, you're just happy to be there, you're just enjoying her nature. Now that is true freedom. When you're not pushing yourself down, but you're not fully attached and indulgent and at the whim, at the mercy of whether or not that desire gets satisfied. Okay? So, when you're fully self-sufficient, your inner well-being, your inner happiness and joy and peace isn't determined by outside forces. You can no longer be manipulated, be jerked, be controlled by outside stimulus. That's true freedom, right? And it does require discipline. And I'm not saying I've reached that, but a lot of people don't even know or don't have enough impetus or reason to start conquering their lower selves, their addictions. Once you start to get some progress against your addict self and create some space, you can then receive the bliss of that freedom. Right? Okay, so let's talk about some practical steps that you can take to overcome your addictions, whatever that may be, and start living a more peaceful, joyful, ecstatic, blissful life, right? That's what we all want. We don't want to be hooked up and like tied up by all these addictions, from phones to social media to being addicted to our possessions, our car, to be miserable if we don't get that sexual release, to be miserable if we don't get that alcohol, to be miserable if we don't get that hit of weed. No one wants to be a slave, right? Right? We want to be free, fully self-sufficient. We want to be happy. We want to be just as we were made by the creation, as we are all children of the immortal bliss. So, step number 1 of journey to freedom from our addictions. Firstly, gaining clarity over oneself. Understanding where your pitfalls are. Understanding what your addictions are. What am I addicted to? I know for myself, before I kind of had some self-inquiry and started meditating, I realized, fuck, I'm really addicted to female validation. I really like that feeling, and then when I don't get it, I feel kind of down. Like if I'm at a party and I don't, get with some girl or have a chat, now I feel down. See, that's an attachment and an addiction, because in the absence of satisfying that addiction, I feel miserable. Same with like smoking or alcohol. I know I had that a little bit as well. So having some space from that and realizing that I was doing that from a state of inadequacy and insufficiency, that's the clarity that can only come from self-analysis and self-inquiry and meditation upon oneself, the analysis of oneself. Millions of people never analyze themselves in their whole life. Now, I'm not trying to say I'm better, because I'm not. I'm fallible. I got addictions to work on. I got things to sort out. But the path to freedom and happiness and liberation comes through self-analysis. All right, that's step 1.